right. Ready? Good evening. It is Tuesday, August 4th.
Recording in progress.
Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. And we're in a regular meeting of the Louisville City Council. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Fahey.
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton. Here. Councilmember Kern.
Here.
Councilmember Cooperman.
Here.
Councilmember Hefner.
Here.
Mayor Lay.
Here. All right. Please stand as able and say with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Right. Do we, I'm going to move to approve the agenda with one change. There may be people here, we're here for the item 8C, which is a resolution approving Centennial 8 Replat B to facilitate a minor subdivision to combine 1006 Honeysuckle Lane and 1008 Honeysuckle Lane. There's been a change that's going to require a continuance of that. So I would propose that that be moved to the front of the line before item 8A, and then we can arrange or address the move to continue that. I want to just make sure that happens so that people aren't sitting and waiting for that. So,
Second.
motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Next is public comments on items not on the agenda and items on the consent agenda. Do we have any of those tonight? Okay.
First up is Andy Johnson.
How many do we have? Just so.
Just one.
Just one? All right. I think Andy knows the drill, but 3 minutes. You don't have to take the 3 minutes, but tell us what you're going to tell us. But tell us whether you're from Louisville.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Andy Johnson. I do reside in Louisville. I'm here tonight to report on a very busy weekend that we had this weekend. If you noticed, Saturday was really zooming down here. And one of those events was the Lucky Pie Criterium. So that's one of the bike races that we've had running in Louisville for a long time. It had not run since 2018. And we were really happy to bring that back. I was hoping that maybe I was the only public comment and that there weren't others about the race that maybe weren't happy about it. But anyway, the Lucky Pie Criterium, also known as Sonic Boom Criterium, was on August 2nd on Saturday. It ran all day. It concluded at 7 with the professional women's and men's fields. We had a world champion, an Olympian, and a whole bunch of people who came over from Europe to participate. And we're just lucky to have them be home to be able to be a part of the race. That is one of the benefits of being in Colorado. The participant list was somewhere between 300 and 400 people. That is down from historical numbers, but very high for a national average for a race like this. So the format is a criterium. The criterium is an old style of racing where you do loops on a short course. This one happened to be about a mile long. Ranges between 30 minutes to an hour and 15, depending on the level of competition. And it was a lot of fun. A lot of people came out to watch the event. If you were at the final stretch near Crystal Springs and Lucky Pie, it did not disappoint. Little history of the race. It started in '09. It ran right on Main Street in downtown for a number of years until the street furniture became a little too restrictive. And then we moved it south. It became numerous state championship races over the years, and we're hoping to bring that back and maybe even bring it back as a national level event. Challenges, it's a downtown event. Those are always the hardest ones to put on. However, there is nothing better for bike racing as a sport than to do a race in a downtown where people can watch. Business parks, all you get are the prairie dogs. A little bit of history about Sonic Boom Racing. We have been a team, our local Louisville team, since 2004. It ran the gamut for 20 years under my leadership of starting as young people, ending as old people, and now a whole new crew has come through to restart the team, and we're really excited about their participation and Louisville Cyclery's participation in the event. So more to come in the years in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Any others? All right. We will move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent?
So moved to
agenda?
approve consent?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, then. The next is council informational comments and committee reports. Do we have any informational comments or committee reports tonight? Yes, Councilmember Kern.
Great, thanks. Just a quick, I guess, kind of public reminder. This Friday will be the final street fair event of the season. So one last time to gather and listen to some great music and support the community and organization. I will be there selling tokens, so hopefully I get to see everybody. So I'll, super pitch it. And I just want to give a big thank you for the information and the update on the Sonic Boom race. Next time, please come to the council meeting before the race and do that same excited pitch. I would love to have come down. I didn't even know about it until after, so thank you. And I would love to see some of these races maybe happening on the west side of town through those residential areas. It'd be kind of fun. McCaslin is a somewhat challenging road to ride on for cyclists just because of the hill, so it could be kind of a fun bike event too. So thanks.
Any other? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem?
I just wanted to thank our Director Cummings and her staff and our cultural advisory boards for a really phenomenal movie on Main Street last week. I think it's one of the really nice, charming things about Louisville is that we literally pull up a movie screen and bring our lawn chairs and sit and watch a movie on Main Street surrounded by historic buildings. I know I saw Councilmember Dickinson there as well as his family, so it's a great tradition and we're very much appreciative of that.
Thanks. How about Councilmember Cooperman or Councilmember Hefner? No. Okay. I have a couple of them. Tonight is National Night Out. There were a lot of people over at the police station enjoying that. Thank you for, thanks to the police department for putting that on and for the people coming out and so forth. The second thing is, I believe it is the 20th anniversary of the library. If people remember, there was one ill-fated large bond issue that went to the voters, and there was just too much in it. It was to build both the rec center and the library. But came back, I think it was the next year, and it passed to build the library, and the library has been going great guns ever since. And I think, is it Friday? When is the Friday? Is a big celebration, and maybe the city manager mentioned that in her report. I want to echo what Andy Johnson said about the race, the race the other day. I was invited to go there, and the announcer, who is like world renowned, and he was phenomenal. was like saying all kinds of amazing things about Louisville. A lot of people who were not from Louisville were there. I am certain that they came downtown afterward and got some food to eat and hung out, went to the various establishments that we've had here. And it was the most phenomenal set of races I have ever seen. I saw the junior races, and then I saw the last pro race, both the women's and the men. The talent that we have in this area the talent we have in Louisville alone is phenomenal. But in the area and nationally, folks who come here, it's really a treat. And I appreciate everybody who had something to do with that. And I appreciate the Elks for kind of sponsoring a place to do it. And I appreciate all of the residents whose houses are around the area, because I know that can be challenging at times, but I think it went off really well. And I just wanted to say that was great for the town and its reputation and just having fun. So, all right. Anything else? City manager's report.
All right, thank you. Just again, in light of the cultural services and the great events that they provide, the Colorado Day at the Museum on Saturday was a great event, amazing. Also, the library 20th anniversary at this location is Friday from noon to 2 p.m. And then also to call out, the upcoming Labor Day parade is also the museum's 40th birthday. Moving on to other items, the Marshall Fire Permit Fee Refund Program. I know folks have been reaching out to you in terms of when letters will go out. Those direct mailings will go out this week to permit holders. And then also just a reminder related to water conservation, we are asking the community to continue with voluntary water restrictions, and we will be doing more messaging related to that. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll go on to regular business. As I said, we're going to start with resolution number 72, series 2026, a resolution approving Centennial 8 replat B to facilitate a minor subdivision to combine 1000 Honeysuckle Lane and 1008 Honeysuckle Lane. Is there any staff presentation on this one?
There's no staff presentation, but staff is requesting that this be continued per the mayor to September 1st, 2026. Staff needs additional time to work with the applicant on a recently identified PUD design standard that could be applicable to the subdivision request.
Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing and move to continue the hearing for that resolution to Tuesday, September 1st, 2026
Second.
at 6 p.m. So,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. All right, thank you for that. Going back to item A, resolution number 66, series 2026, a resolution approving final plan unit development, PUD, special review use, SRU, to allow a helicopter pad and associated development agreement for the development of a 371,600 square foot hospital building and a 62,000 square foot medical building on the approximately 39.9 acres located at 900 Rockcrest Drive. This is continued from July 21st, 2026. The public hearing was opened at that time, so we're just resuming that at this time. And this is, I don't think I've ever had a helipad discussion, so that's, and I'm not sure we've had any in Louisville, at least not for a long while, so. Staff presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, councilors, Matt Post, planner with the Community Development Team. As the mayor indicated, the item before you tonight is Resolution 66, 2026, a request for approval of a final PUD and special review use to allow the development of a new hospital campus at 900 Rockcrest Drive within the Red Tail Ridge development area. This item was continued from July 21st while staff and the applicant worked through some additional details on the development agreement. Quick summary here. The project site is on the screen highlighted in blue. The proposal is developed at 39.9 acre parcel with a 371,600 square foot hospital building and a 62,000 square foot medical office building, or MOB, which I think we'll refer to it moving forward here in the presentation. That development will include associated site improvements, parking, landscaping, pedestrian amenities, and then of course the development will also include a helipad to support hospital operations. Some background here, this property is located within the ConocoPhillips Campus General Development Plan, the area that we otherwise refer to as Red Tail Ridge. The development site is located on the easternmost portion. The entire site is zoned planned community commercial and is subject to this GDP. There have been several amendments to the GDP in recent years. The most relevant to this proposal were amendments approved in October of 2025 and then in June of this past year. The October amendment expressly permitted hospital and medical office uses within the GDP, established height zones specific to the hospital parcel, and then importantly transferred additional development capacity from the existing Avista Hospital campus site that exists directly to the west of this site. The amendment that occurred in June was approved administratively by the Director of Community Development, and then those findings were confirmed by the City Council at the time. That amendment established an alternate method of measurement for building height for the buildings on the site to allow buildings to be measured from finished floor elevation as opposed to average grade. That was the only change to that amendment that occurred. I think there were some questions that popped up about an SRU for the helipad that occurred in that third amendment. My language may not have been clear in the staff report. The helipad has always been allowed as a special review use in the ConocoPhillips Campus General Development Plan. That use was carried over through all of the amendments, and so now we are on the effective and controlling GDP amendment for this parcel, which is amendment number 3. So the proposal includes that 5-story medical office building, which is located centrally on the site. You can see in the site plan here, and then a 62,000 MOB or medical office building, which is just north of the hospital. So the site plan is oriented, so north is on the right here on this particular plan. This campus is intended to serve as a regional medical facility, integrating emergency operations, including that supporting helipad. The applicant has identified future expansion areas for both the hospital and an additional medical office building on this PUD. Those future expansions are shown for just informational purposes and are not in consideration for additional improvements on this PUD tonight. So again, site design includes parking areas, landscape areas, and then those outdoor amenity spaces that we discussed. This site will be developed in phases, with phase 1 including construction of the hospital and associated site improvements to support the hospital, and then phase 2 including construction of the MOB and those associated site improvements to support operation of the MOB. The applicant indicated that they intend to construct both phases concurrently, with a phased approach allowing for the hospital to begin operations prior to the MOB coming online. So that phasing, which is memorialized in the PUD and then further secured in our development agreement, will allow for infrastructure and horizontal improvements, allow the city to accept those improvements, and then allow for a certificate of occupancy to be issued for the hospital to begin operations while they continue construction on the medical office building and then those associated site improvements. A closer look at the hospital building. So again, 5 stories tall. Building is oriented south, or east-southeast rather, toward westbound US 36. South side of the building that we can see in the rendering on the top here will be emergency access, dedicated ambulance and staging areas. Then as shown in the elevations in the renderings, this building does meet upper story step back standards that are established by the First Amendment rather, of the ConocoPhillips Campus General Development Plan. Here's an elevation of the MOB, which is located on the north side of the site. Again, so meets standards for upper story step back on a primary facade for buildings over 45 feet in height. This area will include parking, landscaping, additional pedestrian amenities. A total of 773 parking spaces are proposed on this site to support, again, the regional medical or hospital use that's proposed here. 306 specifically dedicated for the hospital and 467 for the medical office building, although shared parking will occur between 4 access points, with primary access coming off Rockcrest Drive to the south, which is on plan left in this location. Rockcrest Drive is currently being constructed out there by the overall developer for Red Tail Ridge. The internal pedestrian circulation will occur throughout the site and then connects into the broader multimodal network that is proposed through Red Tail. Additional pedestrian circulatory improvements are proposed, and those would include a 10-foot wide shared use path and then raised crosswalks at several locations throughout the site to support pedestrian movement. EV infrastructure is proposed and consistent with our Muni Code requirements and then obligations established through the overall development agreement with that was occurred in 2024. 63% of the site will include landscape areas, native seating, or areas set aside for future development. Those future development areas will be seeded with native shortgrass prairie. Nearly 400 trees and over 4,000 low water plantings will occur on this site. And again, those areas not occupied by buildings or parking areas will be seeded with that native shortgrass prairie mix, which is in line with the overall landscape aesthetic, for the Red Tail Ridge development area. Moving into analysis here, as part of the Red Tail Ridge development agreement, that 2024 agreement, we can talk about that a little bit, a site-wide transportation demand management plan was adopted, requiring all development that occurs within the Red Tail Ridge area to comply with the applicable commitments and goals that are contained within that transportation demand management plan. The applicant did submit a TDM memorandum outlining site-specific and district-wide strategies that are intended to reduce single occupancy vehicle trips, which was the total intent of that TDM plan. Site-specific measures provided by the applicant include bicycle parking, EV charging stations, designated carpool and rideshare parking, and additional telework policies. Importantly, the project will also financially participate in the district-wide TDM implementation, and that is through the Red Tail Ridge Metropolitan District. That funding will support the broader implementation of a future shuttle connection that is planned to run between the Flatiron Station and Broomfield and this Red Tail Ridge site. In order to get that off the ground, additional development needs to occur here, but the applicant is supporting that financially, again, through their obligations with the Metro District. And so staff find that the proposed TDM measures that the applicant has provided satisfy the TDM requirements contained within the overall TDM plan. Traffic study was also provided evaluating traffic generated by the initial build out of just the hospital and the medical office building, as well as future expansion scenarios through 2040 and 2045 build out horizons. The study concluded that the development can be accommodated within the existing and planned transportation network. And it's important to note that near-term roadway improvements that are identified in the study are currently being developed by the overall Red Tail Ridge developer. The study also identifies future long-term capacity improvements that may be necessary at full build-out. That would include potential lane expansions and then the potential for a future signalization at their primary access point. But again, it's been determined that that is not required with this particular development as it stands now. Special review use, the helipad. So this, again, is permitted as a special review use within the general development plan. That has been the case since the ConocoPhillips GDP was first adopted. And that helipad is intended to support their regional hospital operations. Staff find that the helipad is appropriately located to minimize pedestrian and vehicular conflicts and safely integrated into the overall campus design. And you can see that the projected flight paths are north and south out of the site. Again, this plan is turned clockwise. But based on the information provided in the review criteria in the SRU, staff do find that the special review use criteria have been satisfied. Happy to discuss that further, but again, analysis is provided in the staff report. Looking into the GDP, I mentioned the two prior GDP amendments here. So the project does utilize the alternate building height measurement that was approved and accepted by the City Council in June of 2026. And that alternate method of measurement allows building height to be measured from the finished floor elevation as opposed to average grade. As after the first GDP amendment was approved that established height and massing standards, grade conditions on the site were not exactly as the applicant expected, so they needed to pivot a little bit. So we took a look at the finished floor elevation method of measurement, and we determined that the overall impact of measuring from finished floor as opposed to average grade was generally immaterial and results in an overall height increase of 2.86 feet for the medical office building, for the hospital, and then 3.53 feet for the overall medical office building. So the hospital is proposed at a maximum height with mechanical screening of 105 feet, and the hospital, I'd have to look in our staff report there, still meets those height standards that we've proposed now with the FFE. The proposal also meets the standards for massing and building design as were contained in that first general development plan amendment and have been retained through the third amendment. And that requires that buildings greater than 45 feet in height be stepped back on the primary facade 15 feet. So you can see a side elevation here that shows the hospital looking toward the primary facade. The portions of that building that are greater than 45 feet in height are stepped back 15 feet to reduce the overall massing and scale of the building. Again, that is in line with the GDP requirements. The building footprint also does not exceed 50% of the ground floor footprint 45 or lower at 45 or higher. I'm not explaining that very well, but so the GDP requires, I apologize, that the footprint of each floor above 45 feet shall not exceed the footprint of each floor below 45 feet. So not exceed 50% of the footprint below 45 feet, if I'm explaining that correctly. There's a graphic in your staff report that does a great job of explaining that. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss that further as well, but the hospital building does meet that standard. Moving into PUD analysis here. So again, staff has determined that this proposal meets the requirements of our planned unit development and is also, this project is also subject to our commercial development design standards and guidelines. Staff find that all commercial development design standards and guidelines are satisfied and exceeded in some cases with 2 waivers being requested. So the first waiver is from the requirement for street shrub plantings along portions of the street frontage. Instead of those shrub plantings, the applicant proposes native shortgrass prairie seeding consistent, again, with that broader naturalized landscape effort in the overall Ridtail Ridge area. Again, because of the sheer number of plantings and maintenance that would be proposed and the addition of native shortgrass prairie in those locations, staff do support that request. The second waiver relates to required street trees and shrubs along the south frontage specifically, where an existing Xcel Energy easement prevents those plantings or precludes those plantings directly. So staff support the request for a waiver from street trees that are interior to the site to be planted again because of that Xcel Energy easement. Street trees will still be planted on Rockcrest Drive because those are outside of the easement. Our commercial design standards require trees interior to the site. So the request for a waiver is from those trees. So again, that will be planted with native shortgrass prairie in that location. So overall, the proposal complies with applicable siting, massing, step back, parking, circulation, and architectural design standards. And staff find that with the 2 requested waivers, the application complies with, again, the CDDSG. There's an important note here that I neglected to mention, and that was regarding the overall background of the site as it relates to the 2024 Subdivision Improvement and Development Agreement that was negotiated and adopted at the time of the final plat that's established the current parcels we have on site. And that would be in direct relation to solar generation lead requirements and Fitwell campus certification requirements. So the 2024 Subdivision Improvement Agreement requires that all development within the Red-Tail Ridge development area provide on-site solar generation, that all buildings meet LEED Silver certification requirement, and that a Fitwell campus certification be acquired as well, which is outdoor amenity spaces designed to get people outside. That agreement, however, specifically exempts Avista or any of its affiliates from those requirements. That's in section 9.2 of that agreement. Again, that was adopted in 2024. So I did not specifically mention that as an analysis standard here because Avista is exempted from those requirements per that agreement that was adopted and approved in 2024. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions that may arise about that as well. And so with that, the Planning Commission recommended approval with conditions of this application on May 16th of this year. Those conditions were related to technical staff review. The condition was that those items be satisfied prior to bringing this forward to the City Council this evening. The applicant has done that. And so now staff do recommend approval of Resolution 66, Series 2026, approving a final PUD and SRU and associated development agreement to allow development of a 371,600 square foot hospital and a 62,000 square foot medical office building on 39.9 acres at 900 Rockcrest Drive, with the following two conditions, and those would be prior to recordation of these documents, that the applicant address any remaining city staff technical comments that do not materially alter the development that's been approved by City Council this evening, and that prior to recordation of that final PUD, the applicant address city staff comments relating to public improvement cost estimates that will be included as Exhibit A as part of the development agreement. Those comments that I'm relating to are generally technical in nature, very minor. I think we have about 4 or 5 outstanding comments that need to be cleaned up from our engineering department that will not affect the overall site layout or any of the analysis that we provided tonight. So with that, that concludes my presentation. The applicant does have a presentation as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Actually, why don't we, we've done this both ways. Why don't we actually ask questions or have council questions of you first, and then we'll get the applicant up here, because often those are separate questions. So either on the GDP amendment or the SRU, does anybody have any questions for Matt? Yes, Councilmember Kern.
Thanks. Appreciate this. It's very clear this was a lot of work, so thank you. And you explained it just fine. It was very clear. I was curious, this is just about the changes to the landscape proposal. Could you tell us, when it comes to the trees, I mean, are we talking about making a change to allow like 5 less trees or 500 less trees so that we can have a kind of an understanding?
Yeah, I would have to do the linear foot calculation there, but it's probably closer to 20 trees, 15 to 20 trees, I would imagine, is what the actual reduction would be in street tree frontage located behind the sidewalk. So again, it's just for street trees that would be located behind the sidewalk. We will still have street canopy located in the public right-of-way in the tree lawn area, but I can look and answer that question for you.
Because I just was curious if there were ways for them to maybe like meet the requirements of not planting them, just plant them in a different location if XL is not able to accommodate the trees. Is it that it interferes with some of the XL lines or equipment to have trees in that easement?
The XL does not permit any planting of like woody species within a lot of their easements, and that's the case in this one.
And has part of this request also the location of the helipad on the west side? I would imagine we don't want too many trees near where helicopters are going to be flying into the hospital. Is part of that like some limitations around that as well, and keeping plantings low in that west side of the property?
Yeah, I'll allow the applicant to expand on that, but if you review the actual landscape plan, you'll see that there are no trees proposed around the helipad there. I'll also just add, just as there are 400 trees proposed on the site in total. That does not include the actual street tree planting account for, I believe, Sorrel Drive is the street that runs north to south on the west side, and then Rockcrest on the south side. So that 400 tree count is strictly internal to the site. And so we did discuss that with the applicant. The total number of trees was pretty significant on this site.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was going for. Thank you. So we can all understand the scale of the greenery that will still be part of the the existing plan. I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, actually, one other question. Is there anything with the SRU, and maybe the applicant will talk about this, for the helipad where the local airport, RMMA, is involved and notified just because of flight pattern and all of the issues that we have with flight school flights over there?
Yeah, I'll let the applicant answer that question. I have asked that they be prepared to, or planning commission hearing, actually, they be prepared to answer that question. So I think they may have an answer for you on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Fahey.
Continuing on Councilmember Kern's question, does the helipad eliminate some of the proposed or required green space that was originally planned for the development?
It does not, no. So the applicant has proposed the amount of green, I believe 64% of the site right now remains open space or landscape. So there's no reduction beyond what's required by code for the helipad to be there.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right, Councilmember Cooperman has questions.
Great, thank you. First, I was just wondering, are there any sort of timing issues with construction of infrastructure external to the site and the development of the site itself, or is that not really within any purview that we're considering?
Yeah, that's not necessarily within any purview that we're considering tonight, Councilor Cooperman. I can probably get you some answers on that after speaking to our engineering group at a later date.
Okay, no, that's fine. I was just curious mostly. Okay, then I had a few questions about parking and circulation. So first of all, if you look at the parking lots, there are typically sidewalks on the edges of the parking lots, but there are not sidewalks sort of in the middle of parking lots, so that if you park in the middle, there's a nice way to get out of your car and walk on a sidewalk to the hospital. Do we just not require sidewalks that take you from parking in the interior to the site?
We don't have a specific requirement that, for example, a sidewalk or a pedestrian way be provided at every parking block. However, there are pedestrian circulation requirements that do apply. And I did work with the applicant, and the applicant did provide a pedestrian circulation plan that I unfortunately didn't include in my slides tonight. But just based on the overall expanse of the site and the amount of concrete that would be proposed there, we agreed that the pedestrian circulation routes that were proposed were generally sufficient for the use. But again, to answer your question, Councilor Cooperman, there is not a codified requirement that a sidewalk be provided for every block of parking. It's generally a subjectivity kind of requirement that we take a look at.
Right, okay. That's helpful. So then in terms of bicycle circulation, the place where I could make out most clearly where the bicycle parking is was a PDF on the pedestrian amenities. And so that one showed some bicycle parking on the south side of the hospital and some bicycle parking on the north side of the office building. So maybe part of my question is are those the two sites where all the bicycle parking is, aside from this little bit that's interior? And then my broader question is, those two bicycle parking sites have basically no access to them from any of the bicycle lanes or paths. And so I was wondering how that sort of fits in with the circulation plan.
Yeah, so there are 20 bicycle parking spaces, 20 exterior spaces proposed and I'm thinking through this as I'm saying this, Councilor, but there are 20 spaces proposed at the hospital exterior, 20 spaces proposed at the medical office building. And I believe that I worked with the applicant to ensure that some of those spaces are distributed around the hospital building. So I can take a closer look at that for you and give you some examples of where those are located. But there is the multi-use shared path, the 10-foot multi-use shared path that bisects the site,
right,
that is specifically intended for bicycle use. That's where the 10 interior spaces for employees are also located. But there is, to your point, there is not a dedicated bicycle path or way to all of the bicycle parking that's on the site.
Okay. That's helpful too. Okay, so then just two more little questions. So that bicycle path that bisects the site goes through the future location for hospital expansion. I assume it would just have to be rerouted in the future if necessary.
Yeah, that's correct. We would require that to be maintained, or ask for that to be maintained rather at a future build out.
Right. Okay. And then lastly, there's no public transit to the site, but if public transit did come to the site, is there infrastructure to support that possibility?
So because there's no current public transit coming to the site, it wasn't part of the consideration. However, we did, part of the transit considerations we took into account here were the private shuttle service that will be operated by the Metro District. We worked with the applicant to work on a stop somewhere around here. I'll let the applicant speak a bit more to some of their concerns around the shuttle. However, again, the shuttle will circulate throughout the entirety of Red Tail Ridge, but there is no dedicated public transit stop or dedicated shuttle area right now. Although the shuttle could circulate through the site, I believe it'll be a relatively small shuttle that'll operate under the Metro District. But that would be the response there.
And I just wanted to add one thing on that. We did send out a referral as part of this review to RTD as part of the Red Tail Ridge development specifically, and they evaluated the road network to make sure that buses could adequately circulate. And they signed off on the street plan so that if RTD service does come to Red Tail Ridge, they feel like there's adequate infrastructure to accommodate buses.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Other questions, Council? I had a question. Was there a referral made to the Front Range Passenger Rail District?
You know, there was not. Yeah, I don't know if they're accepting referrals yet. They may be.
No, there was no referral there was no referral to the district.
Was there? I didn't notice anything in the.
Yeah, and there aren't any stops planned within proximity.
No, I understand, but there is, it's not a long distance between the train stop and Red Tail Ridge. I don't know whether there is at least an option from a planning standpoint of a future kind of shuttle between those two areas. I wouldn't expect necessarily that's going to be run by the Metro District, but I didn't notice it in the transportation plan or any of that yet. And there is. So
Yeah, there's really no plans. I think, in the future, there could be RTD service, there could be RTD call and ride service, which exists in the community now that could be taken, into account. So I think that's something we'd have to work on in the future.
My recollection is that there was, at one time anyway, some concern about, maybe it was an RTD concern, maybe it was actually an applicant concern, about whether there was going to be enough area around the hospital entrance to be able to have a stop for buses, should that ever occur. Do I have that right, or?
Yeah, an RTD bus would typically stop in the right-of-way of Rockcrest or Sorrel, so I don't think we have any specific concerns or issues. Those haven't been planned yet. I mean, we don't have a dedicated bus pull-off planned in the road infrastructure, but buses often, just pull over to the side of the road in the lane. So again, there could be opportunities in the future to build dedicated pullovers, but that's kind of a future discussion that would need to take place.
Not something that's required now?
Not required now,
Okay,
correct.
good. Unless there are other questions, I don't see any questions from our online council members here. Why don't we hear from the applicant?
you want me to do? Can we share this here? I don't have any. I'm not sharing anything. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. We appreciate the opportunity to present to you this evening. My name is Jonathan Erickson, and I'm the CFO of Advent Health of Vista at 100 Health Park Drive. I'm excited to be here on behalf of Advent Health to speak in support of the PUD approval. Advent Health has 4 hospitals on the south side of Denver and is committed to building a similar presence in the north region of Denver. The recent letter of intent announcement to form a joint venture with Intermountain Health does not stop the plans to build in Louisville at Red Tail Ridge. Avista is the longest continuously operating hospital in Advent Health, tracing our roots back to the Boulder Sanitarium, which opened 130 years ago in 1896 and has continued in the current location since 1990. We have loved being part of this community, and to better serve Louisville and our surrounding communities, we need both a different location and a new building with room to expand and grow. In short, as we plan for our future, it's apparent to us that we need both a site and a structure that can meet the evolving healthcare needs of the communities that we care for. Right now, Advent Health is in conjunction with the project team in the final design stage of planning for our future hospital at Red Tail Ridge and preparing the building permit plan review documents. In closing, I'd like to thank the Commission for your consideration of the PUD. We believe that the new hospital represents the outcome of thoughtful and collaborative discussions with the city on how to serve our community well, and also allows us the access and space needed for growth. I'm going to now turn it over to the members of our planning design team, and they're going to introduce themselves and take the council through our plans for the hospital, and they will also be able to answer questions at the conclusion of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we sharing it now? Is it showing online? No. Do I do slideshow?
So go ahead and hit start the presentation.
Oops.
There you go.
Oh. All right. Hi, everyone. I am Afsane Makui. I'm a senior project manager and principal at Smith Group, the design team working on the project, and I am not a citizen of Louisville.
Valerie Wilkins with Adams Management. We're the owner's rep for Advent Health and program managers. I also am not a citizen of Louisville.
We're very excited to be here tonight. This is an accumulation of actually a couple of years of work and probably over a year of being in this exact room with you all, trying to get through all our GDP amendments as Mr. Post described to you, and then also our PUD. This project really brings a full-service regional hospital and medical office building to Red Tail Ridge. We're creating expanded access to healthcare services for Louisville and all the surrounding communities. Tonight, I'm going to share with you all how we have approached with the site design, the access to healthcare, and also how the building design has evolved over time. We're very near to finishing up our construction document drawings and excited to be submitting to permit shortly. All right, starting with the site goals. So ultimately with this site, we wanted to make sure that we didn't have an institutional site. We wanted to make sure that we use the natural environment as part of the healing process. Louisville is so special in the environment that you have, the connection to nature, and we wanted to stay true to that with the community. And so the hospital wanted to do that as well. And so in doing so, you'll see in the slides today how we were able to connect to nature, not only from within the hospital for patient views, but also physical connection to nature through a public amenity ribbon walk that we'll describe. These were some of our initial inspiration photos. We were inspired by the views on site, as well as the natural landscaping that you have, looking at a lot of boulders, the native grass, xeriscaping, and we were thinking about how can you start to apply that to the facility itself. So as we walk through the site plan, I'm going to talk through all the elements of the site plan and how those natural landscapes have been applied to the site. So as Mr. Post was saying, north is to the right. And so you have your MOB on the right-hand side. You have your hospital kind of centered in the middle. To the top of the plan is Sorrel, and to the left is Rock Crest. The entire facility is set up to have a ring road. So once you access through those 4 access points, you do have connections from the hospital to the MOB, and then we have also separated service connections. So the front of the hospital is really mainly for the public, having 2 main entries, one the hospital main entry, the second being the emergency access entry. On the back side of the hospital, which is behind Sorrel, that's where you have your service entry. So back there you'll have your loading dock, the cup, and then you'll also have your EMS access. So trying to make sure that we are separating traffic circulation and creating really clear wayfinding for anyone who's coming to visit the site. On that back side of the hospital, where we have more of the service side, that is where you'll find that helipad. And I can see that it's pretty hard to see on that screen, but it's right in the middle of the 2 Sorrel accesses to the left.
The helipad is considered a private use helipad, so there are different rules on what you comply with the FAA. While we don't have to go through that full compliance, we are still adhering to that compliance. There is a 7480 form that we have to fill out for compliance, and it talks about our landing zones and some of our flight paths. We've already done that initial communications with the FAA. We are all on the same page for that. We don't have to make any other notifications, but then also with that, we did a communications notice of no hazard, and that also went to the airport side and just communications on potential flight paths. We are a north-south orientation over Northwest Parkway, so just making that awareness to them as well, just while we share the flight area. Currently, 90% of our flights will be outbound is the current planning right now. Not many flights will come inbound to the Louisville campus. The 90% outbound, it's if we had cardiac patients, strokes, heart attacks, we need to transport them to Advent Health Littleton, to the new Heart and Vascular Institute. If we had pediatric patients, trying to get those to Children's Hospital. So it's more outbound on that side. Our average right now, believing and planning, probably about 8 flights per month, about 100 a year on the high end is the idea. So not a ton of flight traffic in and out of this site.
All right, continuing on the site plan, as you can see, much of that site is green. 63% of it is still dedicated to open space, and that helipad does not impede on that 63%. So as we started to look at this large site, we wanted to make sure that we weren't just leaving any of it to overgrow. So we did break it down to make sure that we have different zones for manicured planting, the prairie seed, and some manicured garden areas.
I think while we're still on site, maybe we'll touch on the comments and questions about some of the public transportation. The RTD component, that is still in a lot of consideration and development by the overall developer. We are working in coordination with them in collaboration to understand what are their overall plans for RTD and public transit through the site. While we have the shuttle service that's been talked about through the TDM, that RTD planning is still ongoing, and that is more with the developer, but we're going to coordinate with them on that, but they have not gotten quite that far on their plans.
So an example of that landscape typologies are on the screen. You can see on the left is a short grass prairie, the enhanced short grass prairie, the manicured planting beds, and then a mix of short grass prairie and planting beds. We wanted to make sure as we created the xeriscaping and the landscape that we weren't going to have anything that was overgrown and felt unmanicured, but still making sure that we weren't having to mow it every single day. So we've worked closely with our landscape architect to create a palette that's really conducive and nearly 100% native species for everything we are planting, which helps cut down on our water usage, but then also helps with the growth patterns that you see and ties very closely in with your natural environment in Louisville. So then when you get a little bit more above ground, This is a map of those 400 trees. It is quite a lot. As you can see, we are creating a lot of our screening that is required as part of your code against Sorrel. So we have included additional planting along Sorrel Road on top of what the developer is going to be creating along Sorrel for their sidewalk use. We have also created a buffer zone to our property to the north, as you see on the right-hand side with all the trees, and significant pavement shading with our trees throughout the parking area. One thing to note is just to the east of our site, that is a actually pretty large berm. So when you're on the roadway, you are not going to have a direct horizontal view to the parking. It's already naturally shielded by that buffer, and then with the additional trees that we have included on the parking lot, you're going to get a nice screening effect up to the hospital. The area that was mentioned earlier about the Excel easements, that's kind of that area to the bottom left of your screen. You can see how we don't have trees along the easement, but we did try to provide more around the parking itself. All right, and now let's talk about some of the landscape amenities. This is the ribbon that I really wanted to highlight tonight because I think it's actually very unique. It not only serves as a connector between the hospital and the MOB, but it gives a special respite place for families and staff to utilize when they're on our campus. It is very important that when you're on a healthcare campus, you have access to the connection to nature and a moment for yourself. These are high-stress environments. They're also very happy moments. So when you're going in and out of the hospital, providing multiple areas that you feel comfortable with to have a slow down moment, connect with that area, and then be able to get back into the building is very important. This ribbon has been designed so it expands with the expansion of the hospital and a second MOB. So it will always be that ribbon connection across the entire healthcare campus. This ribbon connection also connects to the bike trail and pedestrian trails to the larger trail system within the Red Tail Ridge development. So as we take a closer look onto the ribbon, I will show some renderings here in a minute, but as you can see here, we're taking a kind of a large place that could have just been a sidewalk. It could have just been a 6-foot sidewalk connecting the two functions. But we started to dissect that space and create moments where you can either have a dining patio right outside of the servery on the inside of the hospital. You can have different types of seating. We also have included a healing garden with opportunities for donors to provide back to the community and provide other amenities that they would love for staff and patients. We also, as you continue that ribbon across the way to the MOB, we wanted to make sure that the MOB staff has access to an outdoor patio as well. So on the north side of the MOB, we do have a staff patio that also connects to the bike parking, which we do think that most of the MOB staff would be using. This was our initial inspiration for the ribbon. We really wanted to make sure that we could take a piece of land and start to carve out, creating some topography changes that helps create separation of space. If you ever are at the airport, you realize when you're looking for some place to sit, you're looking for your spot that's your spot, that is your enclosed area. So how do you start to do that in a natural environment? How do you start to create special moments for one person to go to or a family to go to and feel like they have that privacy they need from others? So as we translated that to the actual design and into the ribbon, you can see that we really did create that dry water bed. So it's not a real water bed, it's just all dry, it's rocks. And it kind of creates this ribbon effect that goes all the way from the hospital to the MOB. And it starts to create that rhythm in those spaces for those special moments. On the screen, you see the outdoor dining area right inside the facility. That's the main servery. So once you get your food, you can come outside. But then also when you're there, you have separation from folks that are kind of on the meandering walk to the right. This is looking back. We have definitely provided multiple types of seating. That was important because everyone interacts with their space differently, especially when you think of like a child versus an adult. They want to interact with their environment at a different level. And so providing those different seating types allows more access and usability for anyone who's there. And then as we approached the Healing Garden, we really wanted to make sure that the Healing Garden connected the patients and families to that natural environment, really creating a place of refuge, reducing stress and anxiety, and to help improve the healing process. This is very similar to the ribbon. It's along the ribbon. It has a little bit more opportunity for that self-reflection and quiet moments. We did make sure as we were designing this in the actual site that we created different opportunities for screening. If you noticed in the site plan where the Healing Garden is, there is some handicap parking, but we provided some additional metal screening so that way we don't have any interruption of cars or noise or lights as someone is in here trying to recharge. This Healing Garden also connects to the chapel on the interior of the facility. So right inside of these glass windows is the chapel. So you get a really great connection of spirit and nature. This is looking from the other side of the Healing Garden. We are really looking for opportunities for donors to come in. They could be looking at statues. We could have special dedication areas, benches, stuff like that, where they really are able to bring the memory of their family back to the hospital and really provide additional donations to allow for better health care in the future for others. So now we'll switch gears to the building. It's been quite a while since we've shown you any renderings of the building. We're really excited to show you this tonight. As you all know, you know where the site is. As we look out to the west, there are amazing views of the Flatirons. We have gone out there and we've flown drones to understand what views the patients would have from inside the facility. We've looked at it from level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, trying to understand how many patients can we actually provide a western view to. We are providing more than 50% of our patient rooms will have western views, which is just wonderful because I don't know who wouldn't feel better when they are not looking, when they're looking at that view itself. And I did want to bring forward kind of the design concept. We had this concept of enfold, kind of how you embrace someone, how you give someone a hug. Enfold means to cover or surround closely. It's often in a gentle or loving way, or to a loving embrace. It can also refer to wrapping or forming into folds. So as you look at our site plan and you start to see how the building has some movement in it, you'll start to see in these renderings how we've also provided that movement on the facades and how we've started to layer the different materialities from metal panel to glass to stone-like materials at the ground level, where you're really trying to create that layering effect, just like you see in the mountains beyond. This is a view of the main entry. So this is the drop-off canopy for the hospital. For wayfinding, we do have the Advent Health sign at the top, really trying to drive people to the center of the site. We do have a large overhanging canopy to provide weather shielding for patients and drop-off families. We can also accommodate multiple lanes of traffic through here, so you can have your patient drop off, you have someone pulled to the side, and you can still have others that are circulating around the site next to them. As you can see here in this rendering, we are incorporating a lot of that building mass change that is required as part of the GDP amendment. Anything above 45 feet has to be less than 50% of level 1 and 2. And so we do have that step back here. We often refer to this as the wedding tier strategy, where you start with a big base and you start to come in from there. This works really well for healthcare. Healthcare, usually you have a D&T platform, which is levels 1 and 2, where you have all your surgery, your ED, your support spaces for kitchen and your loading dock and everything. But from there, as you go up, you have your patient tower. So the patient tower is skinnier because you want to make sure that you have views and windows for every single patient room. So you start to bring all of that in. So as you bring that in, now you have 3 stories of a smaller tower that's stacked on top of the larger first and second floor. As we go through the materiality, we really wanted to make sure that we emphasized more of that glazing on the medical tower. So really looking at levels 3 through 5, trying to make that not feel like a hard mass that was coming down on you, and really trying to just focus on reflectivity and then also providing additional views from the inside. Levels 1 and 2 start to bring in a little bit more of a wood and a dark metal and a stone-like material, where you are actually interacting at the street level with that material. So instead of being able to have direct views into levels 1 and 2, where you can have that on the upper levels, we're starting to screen that with the layering of materiality on levels 1 and 2, as you can see as we're breaking up kind of that cadence of the glazing to the right. All right, let's talk a little bit about our sustainability measures. Although the project is not required to pursue LEED certification, the design and construction teams have incorporated sustainability measures that align with LEED principles. We want to be good stewards of the environment, and we do the best we can with healthcare facilities. It's not easy, but we do incorporate as much as we can, such as reduced embodied carbon, 80% construction waste diversion, low flow fixtures throughout the entire facility, passive solar orientation, including glare and heat gain analysis. That's also why some of our building shifts in its orientation. We have included EV infrastructure with 16 parking spaces day 1 and 220 EV capable or ready parking spaces. That's a lot. We have included our multimodal transportation improvements, such as our connections to the regional trails, and then also our TDM plan and looking at that, and then our water conscious landscaping, such as the nearly 100% native landscape palette.
We did want to address some of the questions about the sustainability. So while healthcare uses are exempt from the Red Tail Ridge Subdivision Improvements Agreement, as Afsani mentioned, we are meeting the LEED standards without going through that certification side. The solar was a different conversation, so we did want to address that. With a healthcare facility, it's different than a commercial building. The utility demands are much higher. It's 24/7. It's constant demand. We need more reliability, especially in a healthcare setting and life-saving, and make sure we have those energy efficiency and components with that. There's some more detail in our package, but the central utility plant has high efficient equipment. The team has gone through from a different approach to make sure we're going to meet the state energy targets as well. We need to do that from a design perspective, but also Advent Health's sustainability goals. So we've gone through that process. Solar is just not quite reliable enough for where we need to go. That's where some of the exemptions came from originally. We just have better reliability and redundancy to help serve the long-term needs for the healthcare side. So solar needs a little bit more process before we get to that from a healthcare standpoint.
All right, so in conclusion, this project delivers much more than a new hospital. It transforms a long-planned site into a regional healthcare destination, expanding access to critical medical services, creating jobs, supporting Louisville's economic vitality, providing extensive open space and trail connection, and implements the city's adopted vision for Red Tail Ridge with a design that prioritizes patients, families, caregivers, and the broader community. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Council members, you have some questions? Yep, Councilmember Fahey.
I just have 2 quick ones. One on that ribbon and garden area, that assuming that that's all going to be ADA accessible?
Yes.
Okay. And could you point on the map where you mentioned having a second MOB? Where would that be in relation to the one that's there?
So you see where it says future MOB to the left of the MOB?
Oh,
You can't quite
okay.
see the dashed line, but that's where the second MOB is planned to go.
Okay.
And then the hospital expansion is right to the left of that, saying future hospital. So that would, main hospital would expand right.
So that would all still be on that little ribbon?
Correct, yes.
Okay, then my second question was, when you're talking about the energy and reliability, we know that we are having some issues with electricity right now. Do you propose having battery backups or some kind of backup system in case the power goes out?
That's a great comment, and that was one I missed on the solar. So even if we could incorporate solar, we still must have our energy generators for backup, so emergency generators. We also have UPS, they're a battery system to make sure all of our medical equipment stays online if we lose power. We are in conversations with Excel right now. There are some concerns with the substation service of what can be brought to the site. We are currently going through some conversations that we can't get both of our feeds that we need in time due to some limitations they have. So we're currently working on that with them right now, but we will have at least 2 emergency generators that will be on site, and they can power any of our emergency, they're called red outlets in a hospital, and all of our high-tech stuff that needs to keep people alive, it plugs into one of those, and those will fire up if we lose power to the site.
Okay.
Within 7 seconds.
7 seconds.
Thank you.
Other council members? Yeah, council member.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up the sustainability questions there. I think it's, it's one of those curiosities of, what you guys are planning to do, considering you don't have to follow what was in the GDP. So I appreciate you, bringing up a lot of those, and I understand that hospitals are special buildings. They are unique and have different needs than some other buildings. So I appreciate you going through that. And so my understanding, the helicopter will kind of live at that hospital because its intent is to take patients that started at that hospital somewhere else if need be. Is more the was that?
Sorry. Likely no. They share regional helicopters right now, and they use different flight life services. And so there likely will not be one stationed here. We will
Okay.
also not have fueling capabilities here. So it'll
Okay.
be very limited. They can call in for that flight to transport the patient out.
Okay. So the inbound to outbound is really just a matter of curiosity, because from a outside perspective, it flies in and then it
That's a
flies
fair
out
point.
every time.
That is
So,
valid.
The patient inside of it is what you were alluding to, but that was good information for me to understand that, just when I see the helicopters, it's probably that, someone's being flown to Children's or out to Denver. So I appreciate that information as well. And it sounded like you said you're assuming less than 100 flights a year.
Correct.
And where are you getting that information? I just know that our community is sensitive to flights of all kinds. But just curious where you're getting that data. How would we know? I'm sure you have an answer, but how would we know how many flights would come in and out of that hospital?
Yep. Our regional EMS coordinator for Advent Health has gone through all of the flight studies from each hospital. We compared it to a hospital similar in size to Parker Adventist. And that hospital right now is even growing, and their count is not above 100. So it kind of just depends on which hospital and what services we're talking about. But they did an overall study based on what services we'll have here, our trauma level that's expected, and then they can average out those flights. That helps them also plan on their side for the resources for that.
Great, yeah, I appreciate that. I think the design is, are we on comments? The design is fantastic. I really like the front area, so I appreciate you going through. It was one thing to kind of see it here, but seeing some of those renderings of the vision of that space, I hope that comes to fruition in the way you've designed it, because it is an important amenity at a hospital, is being able to walk around and be in nice spaces, and some of our other hospitals around here don't really have that. I think that's a really lovely addition to the medical care.
Councilmember Kern.
Great. Thank you again. And thanks for all a lot of the thoughtful details. I'm one of the people who loves the current Avista Advent Hospital, and a lot of it is, obviously it's the care and the staff, but it's also the healing nature of the environment. And it's indoors and out at the current hospital. So I was curious, Will there also be that transition on the inside to feel a connection to the outside? Right now, from the inside of the hospital, you're like, not even just in a patient room, but in common areas, you're looking outside, you're seeing the mountains, or you're seeing greenery type things. And I wasn't sure if that indoor-outdoor element would apply to this one.
Yes, absolutely. That was one of our initial must-dos from leadership. We had to make sure that we are capturing that connection to nature. So on this plan, what you can't see is the main entry. Can you see my mouse? You cannot. So it's kind of in the middle. You see where the red is. That you go straight up to the hospital. That's your main entry. That entire the south side of the hospital that is along the ribbon is glass. So as you're walking across the hospital from your kitchen, which is all the way to the far right, to your registration, to your gift shop, to your main circulation in the middle of the hospital, all the way down to ED, you have direct connection and view to the ribbon design we have on the outside. As you go up to the patient floors, as I mentioned earlier, you have more than 50% of your patient rooms that have that view to the west. But then we've also created family respite and lounges along the little connection points. So anytime we have our kink in the building, those are where we've planned out those lounges and family areas so that they can capture views both to the east and the west as well.
Nice. I was also curious, so you have the dark green in this walkway that's where all of the greenery is, and there's a lighter green. Is that like to the left, so down to the
so
south?
right here.
And then in the middle?
Yeah, that's where the future ribbon is going to connect into.
Okay, so the dark green two components are what will be the initial landscaping plan, and then those will be future?
Yes.
Gotcha, okay. I was looking at the one that's to the left, which is to the south of the hospital, and how that's the only outdoor space that will actually have mountain views. Everything else is actually looking to the east. And I thought that's where everybody will gravitate to, because you can see them do it at the current hospitals.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This side is very unique in that you have a front door on every single side. And so when you were trying to figure out, like, well, how do you have a service access to the hospital? Is it better to have it off of Sorrel, or is it better to have it off of the east side? And so when we were thinking about wayfinding and patient access, when you come off of Rock Crest, you want to know where that front entry is. You don't want to have follow signs around to the front of the building on the west side of the facility. So that'd be like flipping the entire plan right now. That would capture more of those western views from a public access and a ribbon standpoint. But from a wayfinding experience, we found through our studies that it was going to be really difficult for folks to find their way to the main
Oh, that's
door.
interesting. So that's fantastic that you were kind of thinking of that, like the public access piece of it too. That sounds like a lot of the public access that's going to be coming from 36 and the Northwest Parkway. What about a lot of the public access that's actually coming from like the central or the western part of Louisville, which it's actually faster and easier for them, I think, to not come in from the eastern side. So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, so the idea there is that they are going to access the site on that northwest access point right off of Sorrel, and they'll come around the Loop Road across from the hospital, over the MOB, and then to the hospital.
Oh, got it. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Why don't we take some public comment if we've got any? Do we have any public comment? No. All right. So come back to council discussion. This is, there's only one round of public comment, so we've had that time. This is, pardon me? It's just either hallucinating or there is a car alarm going off behind us. No matter, we'll keep at it here. We've got the PUD and then the SRU. I guess and probably best to take them one at a time. Bear with me for a second. This is one of those very,
Mayor, it's
very
one
large-
resolution that'll approve, it's one resolution that will approve the application, all the
Right.
components and the development agreement.
Right.
So you need just the one action on the one resolution.
I'm just going to take it as two parts of a whole. Okay. All right. I think the staff's done a really fine job of walking through all of the criteria. And I think what I'd like to do is if there are any, first of all, any questions about the findings that they've outlined for us relating to the PUD, let's talk about those now. Looks like Councilmember Hefner has a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I was going to make the same point as the city attorney about the resolution covering both. And while I appreciate that others may still have more questions, I was going to go ahead and move approval of resolution number 66, series 2026. I was very pleased with both the staff report and the applicant presentation, and look forward to approving this tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion about either part of the proposal tonight, the application? Yes, Councilmember.
Well, I'll just state the obvious, like, it's a little bit, it's a little boring tonight. This is so exciting. This is so amazing. Like, it is so important to our community. It's so important from employee perspective, from a health perspective, keeping Avista in our community, if you will, Event Health. It is just, it's a beautiful concept. It's in a great location, close to the highway, easy to get to, even a helicopter. It is so cool, and it won't be perfect. There will be things about it that are difficult, and it's still like a huge parking lot and all those things that is necessary, right? But it is just absolutely gorgeous and really exciting, and I'm so excited for you guys to open up next year.
All right, then. Somebody want to speak to that from the applicant? All right, anyone else? Councilmember Cooperman, and then Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I just want to say, I'm satisfied with staff's analysis of the PUD and the SRU. I think that in particular for the PUD, that the couple of waivers are justified. So I would echo what my fellow council members have said, and I plan to vote to approve the PUD and SRU. My only qualm is that I do think the bicycle connections interior to the site could be much improved. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I don't think I've spoken yet on this item, so I feel like it's necessary to say something because I am very, very excited about moving forward with this project. I echo my fellow council members, and I'm not as enthusiastic as Councilmember Dickinson is in his expression of excitement, but I'm looking forward to the groundbreaking ceremony first, and then we'll finish it next year, right? Thank you very much. I'm very much looking forward to breaking ground on this project.
I certainly echo the comment about the groundbreaking. I agree on the comments that have been made by other council members and won't say anything further about those. I think the staff has done a good job about, as I kind of mentioned before, about outlining the criteria for both pieces of this resolution. And so I think we can adopt those. And I really want to say thank you for their work on this, because these are massive amounts of work. I want to make sure that the public is aware just how heavy a lift these things are for staff over a long period of time. And it's really a credit to the professionalism and the just dogged work. And so I want that to be appreciated by all of us. And so Thanks. And then, so with that, I think we take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. And good luck with that opening next year. All right, let's move on to ordinance number 1935, series 2026, an ordinance approving Centennial Valley General Development Plan Amendment for Lot A of the Centennial Valley Business Park filing number 8 final plat. This is on for second reading and a public hearing. There's going to be 2 rounds of public comment on this tonight as a result of it being an ordinance. I'm going to open the public hearing. Any disclosures? Doesn't sound like there are any. Staff, take it away, please.
Thank you. So Jeff Hurt with Community Development. So I'm here to present a request for an amendment to the Centennial Valley General Development Plan to allow 3 things. So first, to allow permanently affordable multifamily housing on a 2.8 acre site at a density, a residential density up to 37 dwelling units per acre, and in buildings up to 45 feet in height or up to 4 stories. So a little bit underneath the request in terms of the specifics. So this GDP amendment is only about land use, density, and height. So there's a whole subsequent process that will need to take place in terms of detailed site planning and infrastructure and things like that. So we are at the zoning level at this point. And one thing that is important to note is this GDP amendment, and I've got some language I can pull up here, does explicitly state that it's only multifamily, permanently affordable residential. So market rate residential could not be built here, for example, in the future. The city is the applicant, working with Coldwell and Company, the property owner in this case, and I'll get into a little bit of why that's the case. And I know this is impossible to read, but just to give you a visual, the actual language, there were some questions about the language on the GDP itself in terms of the action before council tonight that essentially locks in the permanent affordability. There is a note on the GDP that is being voted on tonight that specifically spells that out and says deed restricted affordable residential only. And we'll get into how the units can be credited toward other developments in terms of the inclusionary. That's included in this note too, but just wanted to give you a visual of where that lives. Bit of background of the property is currently vacant. It's surrounded by some other vacant land and mix of commercial and office uses. It is very well served by transportation infrastructure and services nearby. This is just to give you a visual of the sort of the scale of the Centennial Valley GDP. It's a very large area. This is just one site within that several hundred acre general development plan. And so there's a couple slides on background here that is not part of the specific request before you tonight, but it is important context because there's sort of a tie-in. So we as city staff have been working with the Coldwell team who owns several properties in the area, and those properties are highlighted in pink on this map. The idea is for a future general development plan amendment for those other sites surrounding this site, those being the ones in pink, to also allow residential or consideration of that, whereas currently commercial is only allowed on these properties. That is a broader proposal that should be coming before council here soon, and it does tie into this. One of the things that's important to note as far as that broader proposal goes, all indications are that those sites that are in pink will be fully compliant with the comprehensive plan policies in terms of density levels and building heights. So this specific property is a bit of an outlier because of the affordability component. Also important context related to these broader sites. So the idea is that this property being 100% affordable and having all of its units permanently deed restricted affordable, they could count or be credited toward the inclusionary housing requirements of these peripheral sites. And so there's a lot of agreements that would need to be figured out for those peripheral sites. But what this action tonight does in part is it enables the units that are built here to be credited toward those other sites through future agreements. And I did want to acknowledge that we as staff certainly would have preferred to bring this all together as one package more cleanly, but we decided to split them up because this specific site is under a deadline for low-income housing tax credits. We wanted this one to move forward sooner than later, so the broader proposal is going to be subsequent to this proposal. As a reminder, so City Council actually had a concept plan on June 2nd for this proposal. Obviously, that's non-binding feedback, but there was general support for the project to move forward, and nothing's really changed materially between what was viewed then versus what's before you tonight. Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously of what's before you tonight on June 11th, and then Council voted to advance it to this public hearing on July 21st. So the specific proposal, and again, this is not what's before you tonight, but just for context, the specific proposal that this action tonight would enable through this zoning approval is planned for 100 permanently affordable units with a mix of unit types, and for area median income or serving households with area median incomes between 30% and 80% AMI. So that's the proposal right now, and that aligns with the low-income housing tax credit application as well. Again, not a site plan approval tonight, this is just context. And so in terms of why the city is the applicant for this request, it is unique in a number of different ways, and I won't go into too much detail, but it is a very explicit sort of policy direction from council to take this very action in support of an affordable housing project like this. We're also partnering with COBOL for some funding applications in addition to the low-income housing tax credit. There's a Proposition 123 funding application in play too as well. In terms of the analysis around comprehensive plan policies, staff does find it pretty closely aligns with certainly the policies around housing affordability and diversity of housing types, locating housing near transit, things of that nature. I wanted to get into specifically the comprehensive plan guidance around building heights. So there's a little bit of nuance here. So the comprehensive plan has guidance for this site to be up to 3 stories, and they're proposing up to 4 stories. And so it is important to note that the comprehensive plan does have really explicit guidance that we should or could look at allowing flexibility for taller buildings, provided they provide a community benefit in exchange, such as affordable housing. So that's the lens that staff evaluated this request through, because it's potentially going up to 4 stories, because it's providing that affordability benefit. From staff's perspective, it does align with the comp plan policies. A little bit of analysis on building heights, because there was a request to go slightly higher. The COBOL team did provide some visuals of what the proposed building could look like looking west toward the mountains from Centennial Parkway. That's what the image is here. The image on the bottom right is what that building would look like if it were built out at 45 feet and 4 stories. Additional analysis shows that there's actually buildings nearby that are basically the same height. They're just 3 stories because they're office buildings and the floor plate is taller. So if you look on the subject block just south, there's actually buildings that are up to 46 feet. Applicant was requesting 45 feet. So it is consistent with the bulk and sort of massing of some of the surrounding buildings. Additional analysis, so our Proposition 123 affordable housing unit commitment is 77 units. So for example, if this went through, this would fully satisfy our Proposition 123 commitment. That would be a big win for the city. I also did want to note that there is a traffic impact study that accompanies this specific proposal. It's in your packet. So it considers the density potential on this site and also the broader site and the residential densities being contemplated on those peripheral sites. So the traffic study looks at all of it, and basically the conclusion is that if you look at a build out of residential density on those peripheral sites and this site in comparison to if it built out as office, for example, the traffic demand would actually be lower at peak hours with build out of residential than office. So the area is well equipped to handle additional traffic and has sort of been built out for that purpose. So that concludes staff recommendation, staff analysis. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
And the applicant is here as well, sorry, for COBOL, if there are any questions about that, the co-applicant.
They have a presentation.
I don't believe so, no, just here for questions.
Right. Council questions? Right. It doesn't look like we have any questions right now. Do we have any public comment? No. All right. Then back to council. Does council have any comment? Yeah. Councilmember Dickinson.
I'll be brief. Again, this is a really exciting project. Affordable housing is really important to this council, to this community, certainly to myself. So it's really exciting to get a project of this size in this area, and I think it's going to be a great area for it. And I'm happy that we can have a density bonus, a height bonus, like finding ways to make this more impactful in our community and add more homes. And so I'm really impressed with the applicant, with staff, and I will say with the direction of this council to encourage all of this great work by all of you. So I think it's fantastic, and I appreciate you, relaxing me around the concern that, if this doesn't go through, anyone can build to this density. So these perks are for affordable housing, and the specific type of affordable housing I think is great. So it'll be really interesting to see how this project goes, and then as it comes back, if you will, like this project's going to keep coming back to us when they do other projects and point back to it, right? So I think it's really important that it gets done well, and that we're able to keep coming back and realize that they did it in the reverse order that most people have ever offered it, right? It's like build the commercial thing and then give us either fee in lieu or offsite. So we're getting the offsite first, and then we're going to get the market rate stuff second. And I think that's just absolutely fantastic, and I think it'll make all the future projects that much easier. So I'm really excited about this, and I there hasn't been a lot of change since the first reading, so I appreciate all the work that went into that meeting as well.
Right, Councilmember Cooperman.
I will just enthusiastically echo Councilmember Dickinson's comments. Thank you.
Your enthusiasm is infectious, Councilmember Cooperman. All right, let's do a second round of public comment. If we've got one, do we have anybody? All right, back to council. Councilmember Kern.
I was just going to make a motion. I was going to move that we pass ordinance number 1935, Series 2026, an ordinance approving a Centennial Valley General Development Plan amendment for Lot A of Centennial Valley Business Park, filing number 8, final plat, second reading.
Second. Oh, Deb gets it, if you're marking it down.
Comments? I wanted to make a couple of comments. One, I think Councilmember Dickinson nailed it about the importance of council being united on this kind of project. I think that's terrific. I don't think this is a new thing for this council. I think this is something we've been talking about and working toward for some time. We've had, 2 initiatives relating to it. We've had a comprehensive plan that discussed it. We've got, I think, importantly, private businesses that are working with council or with the city to bring this together. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize is very much a possibility. And the speed with which we have gotten this one off the ground is really credit to all the people who've been involved in it all the way around. So thank you. Councilmember Kern.
Yeah, I was going to build on that. I actually think a big thank you goes to the Louisville team in planning and community development, because this has been a heavy lift, and I really appreciate the incredibly expedited rate that you guys have worked. I think this has come through so quickly from the first time we heard about it. And thank you to Cobell for bringing what I know will be an excellent project, having seen your previous ones. I'm sure that this will meet all of those same standards. I also wanted to reassure people, I loved your comment about the traffic impact, and that if this was an office building, this is going to have approximately 100 residences in it, that it would actually generate significantly more traffic if this had 100 offices in it. So thank you.
Councilmember Hefner.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I think the record in the memo supports approval of this, and I'm pleased to do it. I do want to just briefly call to everyone's attention an email we got this morning from a resident linking to an article about Telluride's experience with doing affordable housing, and highlighting a lot of the problems they've had as they've sort of embarked on a municipal effort to decide what kinds of people should live where and for how much and for how long, and how much dissatisfaction that has generated. And I think this project is a little different insofar as it's not going to be administered by the city, and I'm pleased about that. But just something to keep in mind as we continue to embark down the road of sort of centrally planned housing projects that there are lots of ways for them to go awry, and we need to be cautious.
Thank you, Councilman Hefner. I wanted to just circle back. There's one thing I'd forgotten to mention. I didn't want to pull this off of the consent agenda, but if you look back at item 5C, we have decided that we want to use the private activity bonds, participate in the private activity bond program. And that's going to help this project, we hope. That's a program that's been around for a long time, and it has been 11 years that I've been on council, and we have seen those projects or those bonds be provided to other communities over and over again, very worthwhile projects in other cities. The fact that we can use those ourselves, I think is a really huge thing. And I appreciate staff's work on that because it's one of the ways in which a consent item gets immediately used as well. So can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Kern.
Yes.
Councilmember Fahy.
Yes.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Yes.
Councilmember Cooperman.
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
Yes.
Mayor Lay.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is resolution number 7. 2026 resolution designating residence located at 1101 Main Street. Historic landmark being its house and placing landmark incentive. This resolution is just round of There'll be one round of public comment, and we'll give it to staff to present. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jess Daniels, Senior Planner, and this item is Resolution 73, Series 2026, to designate 101 Main Street as a historic landmark to be named the Caranchi House. So just as a bit of a background, as you know, the city has a robust and voluntary landmark program. There's currently 70 landmarks in the city, and the program offers zoning and financial incentives to property owners to preserve and rehabilitate eligible properties to help preserve the city's historic assets. So the structure requested for landmark designation is located at the intersection of Main and Short Street. Again, it's 1101 Main Street. These photos show the home and conditions over time and comparing the 1948 Boulder County Assessor Card and present-day images of the property. The city's architectural survey, Paleo West Stories in Place, identifies this home as a bungalow form architectural type and uses this property as the best example of the bungalow form in Louisville. These types of homes were common between the early 1900s, and some common elements are reflected in the structure, which include thick columns, clipped gabled roofs, and large porches as shown in the photo. So in order to receive a city landmark designation, landmarks must be at least 50 years old and meet one or more of the criteria for architectural, social, geographic, and environmental significance as set forth in the Louisville Municipal Code. So these are analyzed in detail in the staff report, and 1101 Main Street meets the following criteria. It meets the age criteria as it was constructed in 1928, and it's 98 years old. It meets the social significance criteria due to its association with the Jacko and Caranchi families who contributed to Louisville's Italian-American community, historic preservation efforts, and other civic organizations that are included in the social history report in the packet. It meets the architectural integrity criteria as it's considered to be the best example of the bungalow form in Louisville, which is an abundant housing type in the city. It also meets the physical criteria. It's noted for its high integrity in the city's architectural surveys, and it's maintained its historic footprint over time. So at their June 16th, 2026 meeting, the HPC recommended approval of the landmark designation and a landmark bonus of $7,700, and that the structure be named the Caranchi House. As it meets the landmark criteria listed on the previous slide, staff also recommend approval of Resolution 73, approving the landmark request with the incentive bonus and naming the structure the Caranchi House. That concludes the staff presentation. I'm available for questions, and there's no applicant presentation.
Thanks. Council, any questions on this one? I was surprised that there isn't a Caranchi House already. That this is this the first one?
It's the first.
Wow. Because they're everywhere. The Caranchis, their fingerprints are on so much in our community. All right. Do we have any? Did you have any questions? Okay. Why don't we take public comment if there is any? No? All right. Back to council. Whoop. Yes.
Hi, Andy Johnson again, Louisville resident. I apologize, my name wasn't on a card for this item, but I am compelled to speak. I did consult on this project. I did not do an HSA. The consultation was to move towards landmark and do it, have an expedited process, and let the new owner of this home, at their discretion, do an HSA, landmark, all those steps, which I hope they do. It's a wonderful home. It's in amazing shape. We're really lucky to have it. I believe I'm on the agenda for the next HPC meeting to do a special report on the Clipped Gable Bungalow. It is a gripping story. We have over 36 of these structures in Old Town, which if you drive around Old Town, that is actually quite a bit. And we have over 46 bungalow styles. So Clipped Gable bungalows. And bungalows are different. However, they are distinguished in small ways. I happen to live in a Clipped Gable bungalow, so this is a topic very dear to my heart. It is interesting. It does have a very rich history in terms of who the builder was. And so if you're interested, please tune in, and I hope you will. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. Any other council discussion? If not, could hear a motion.
Yeah, I would move that we approve Resolution 73, Series 2026, approving the landmark designation and a landmark incentive grant amount of $7,700, and that the structure be named the Caranchi House.
Second.
Second.
Got a lot of seconders tonight. So any comment or discussion over this? Doesn't look like it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Congratulations. Our final item tonight on the regular agenda is Resolution number 74, Series 2026, resolution approving a focused preservation and restoration grant and an extraordinary circumstances grant for the James House located at 700 Pine Street. This again is a resolution on one round of public comment. Again, staff, take it away.
All right, again, I'm Jess Daniels, Senior Planner, and this item is Resolution number 74 to approve a focused preservation and restoration grant and extraordinary circumstances grant for 700 Pine Street. So the applicants requested the focused grant of up to $15,000, an extraordinary circumstances grant of $22,300 for a total request of $37,300. I did want to mention the applicant had previously requested an extraordinary circumstance grant totaling $128,300, but has since aligned the request to match the Historic Preservation Commission and staff recommendations. The applicant did submit a letter included in your packet explaining their reasoning for the original grant request amount and the considerations that council and the HPC could consider when developing future criteria for future funding resolutions. So the HPC and staff recommendation are the same. Approval of a preservation and restoration grant of up to $15,000. Approval of extraordinary circumstances grant of up to $22,300, specifically for structural and shoring work. And so the total recommended grant is $37,300. So 700 Pine is located on the corner of Jefferson Avenue and Pine Street. As some background, this property was landmarked in 2013, and at that time received a landmark bonus of $1,000. That was the bonus amount at that time in 2013. This property hasn't applied for any additional grant funding. It did not at that time, and it hasn't since. And this property is subject to the resolution in effect at the time, which is Resolution Number 2, Series 2012. That funding resolution had a focused grant category for items limited to sustaining the form, integrity, and materials of a historic property. So that grant was $15,000, and it did not have an expiration date in that funding resolution, in contrast to our current funding resolutions, which do. Just as some background. And this property is also subject to our current Historic Preservation Fund Resolution, number 102, Series 2025, regarding the process, guidelines, and limits for extraordinary circumstances. So these are a few images of the property that show its present-day condition in relation to a historic photo from 1948. The overall project scope of work, which is related to the grant request, was approved in an alteration certificate by the HPC at their June 15th meeting. So that scope of work includes siding restoration and repair, removal of the soffits and repairing some wood soffits, chimney repair, replacing the windows and doors, repairing the front entry porch and replacing it with finishes to match its historical condition, a new roof, new insulation, reinforcing the house framing, removing and replacing the existing foundation, removing the metal siding on the garage and restuccoing the exterior, adding a rear building addition for a new bedroom, and updating and replacing their mechanical and electric systems. So in evaluating the grant request, as mentioned, the resolution in effect at the time was Resolution 2, Series 2012, and that resolution had a category for focused grant. So staff looked at the guidance in the resolution. This grant was for sustaining the existing form, integrity, and materials of the historic property, and staff determined that the following items are eligible as part of that definition. Replacing the windows and exterior doors, which is $24,000 cost estimate for that work. Replacing the exterior siding, repairing that and replacing the trim, $24,640. And so that total eligible work for this grant, this sub-grant as part of that resolution, is $48,640. So half of that cost for the matching component of the grant is $24,320. And so the applicant has enough eligible expenses to use the full $15,000 grant, which is recommended by staff. So as mentioned, the current 2025 HPF funding resolution provides direction for extraordinary circumstances requests for properties landmarked prior to the enactment of the resolution. So as per Section 12 of the current resolution, those owners can apply for additional grant funds through extraordinary circumstances described above in the resolution. And at their June 15th meeting, the Historic Preservation Commission determined this to mean applying a cap of $22,300 and applying the definitions for extraordinary circumstances, which include vital structural or code-required work or additional funds needed to preserve original materials. So the HPC found that temporary shoring of the house for installation and the new foundation were eligible items for vital structural work under extraordinary circumstances. So the total amount of those eligible items are $56,505. And half of that amount is $28,252. And so the applicant has enough eligible expenses to meet the $22,300 max grant cap. So in analyzing this grant request, staff want to note that the intent of the Historic Preservation Fund is to provide incentives for local landmarking. So the eligibility, expirations, and grant caps do exist to meet the requirements of the ballot initiative and the city ordinance to provide these incentives. So the HPF fund is not intended to be used for open-ended preservation work for all of the 70 landmarks in the city. And in summary, this grant request is consistent with the resolution in effect at the time and the process regarding extraordinary circumstances in the current funding resolution. So as mentioned, the Historic Preservation Commission reviewed this request and approved the Focus Preservation and Restoration Grant of $15,000, as well as the Extraordinary Circumstances Grant of $22,300 for a total grant of $37,300. So based on the maximum permitted grants under the city's adopted funding resolution, staff recommends approval of Resolution 74, Series 2026, approving a total grant of up to $37,300 for extraordinary circumstances, the structural and shoring work for $22,300, as well as the Focus Preservation and Restoration Grant of $15,000. So that concludes the staff presentation. If there are any questions, there's no applicant presentation, but I believe they wanted to make a few comments.
Council questions? Councilmember Curtin.
Do we, and this might be answered actually when the applicant speaks to us, do we know what the intended use of the property is? Is the applicant going to be residing here? Is this their home?
It's their primary residence.
That's what I was thinking. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, any public comment on this? It sounds like there's at least one. Yeah. Come on up. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm not opposing the project whatsoever. I live next door. I own the house right next door to it.
Can you state your name?
My name is Joe Rangel, lifelong resident of Louisville. Been here when the Crancies and Colossians, I'm surprised with, they don't have more of theirs. Anyway, so it was brought to my attention that that the tractors will be in between the two homes. And from the stoop from his side, coming off the side of his house to my house is 12 feet. Now, with these homes being as old as they are, with the foundations as soft as they are, my concern is tamping and digging and moving that soil. What's going to happen to my house? Will it shift? Will the walls crack? So I just like to know if this does happen. I mean, obviously there's going to be some insurance policies going on here, but I would think there would be other avenues to dig behind his home, on the side of his house, in front of his house. There's plenty of room. It's just that the in between the two homes is very, very short. So I have a real big concern about that. Other than that, I wish Aaron and his family the best with this project. I know it's going to take a while, and I totally understand that. With this in mind, so I don't know what the process of this project is. Do I need to go to the building department to find out when it's going to start? Because we're just I'm left in the dark knowing. I've called Aaron. He didn't really say when it was going to start. Obviously, it has to pass through all this, and he has to get permits. Is there a timeline for this? Do we know that this project would start?
We'll talk about that in just a second.
Okay.
Raising a good point.
Okay, and with that being said, that's primarily my concern is the digging in between the two houses. I think there's a well cap that's there between the two houses. It's a big old concrete thing with a well thing there, so I'm not too sure. That's just something that's, once you loosen that dirt, and I know my house is not on a foundation that's stable. But 1912, 1918, it was, get what you can in here. It's built, but I appreciate your time and thank you.
Thanks. Back to, and then no more public comment. Is that right? Just going to ask the planning and building services there to comment on that. Is that something you take care of at permit time or?
Yeah, so on the question of, the timing of the permit, certainly you can call and check in with us. I don't know if a permit's been submitted yet, but we don't post notices of those permits, but you can always call the building department and ask for the status of the permit, and we can tell you if it's been submitted or when it's been issued. As far as other, from the building department, we do look at we're looking at building code, structural issues, and making sure those all meet our code. And then really the contractors and, probably the designers are managing how that is done. So we're not really overseeing, the staging of the construction as long as it's within the boundaries of the development for the most part. So I don't know, their architect is here, Mr. Stewart. I don't know if he has anything that he would want to share related to that. This is just the historic preservation case as well, so it's not particularly relevant to the criteria that you're looking at in the question in front of you. But there might be more to share just informationally.
Yeah, no, that's all I wanted to address, was to make sure that there was some understanding of that path. All right. Do we have any other questions? If not, somebody want to make a motion?
So I think the homeowner didn't have a presentation, but wanted to make comments.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, Council. My name is Aaron Vogelsberg. My wife Janice and I are the owners of 700 Pine Street. The house has been in our family since 1938. My grandparents bought it for $500, and has been in my grandparents' name, my mother's name, upon my grandmother's death in 2009, and then we have been living there since 2009, and recently, in 2024, February 2024, it was put into our name so we could rehabilitate it. That's most of the reason why the timing of the requests are when they are. My mother and father were entering retirement, and they weren't necessarily in a position to rehabilitate it, nor would you want to at 65 and 70 years old. So we asked that they put it in our name when we did a quick claim deed, so that we could go ahead and rehabilitate our family's home. So we are here for any questions that you might have for us regarding the request.
Any questions? Yeah.
Actually, I'll just actually relay your neighbor's concern that this would be, because obviously this is your home. And let me start by saying thank you for keeping it in the family, for, preserving it, and for, getting it up to snuff, if you will, and making it a place that you are clearly going to want to continue to live in. It's something that every day all of us drive by and see, so it's going to be wonderful. I appreciate it. But just more from just, I guess, a good neighbor perspective, you'll be overseeing a lot of the construction with your team and your design team. I'm kind of hoping that just stays in consideration, that there's no damage to somebody else's property. That's all.
Yeah, the Rangels are like family. I mean, they've been neighbors of my grandparents and us for a number of years, and we helped each other shovel snow and mow lawns, and so, of course, that's a consideration. Like, we don't want any damage to anybody else's property.
Thank you so much. That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Please, Mayor Pro Tem.
I was very excited to see this house come across our agenda because I believe you're the house that puts up a lot of holiday lights every year.
Yes, that's accurate.
That's you guys. So while there will be, a delay or a pause in the lights over the next year or two, it's worth the wait. So I'm excited to see the new lights up once you finish your rehabilitation projects. So thank you for doing this for our community.
Do a motion.
Sure, I'm happy to do a motion. So I move to approve Resolution Number 74, Series 2026, a resolution approving a focused preservation and restoration grant and an extraordinary circumstances grant for the James House located on 700 Pine Street.
Second.
Sorry, Councilmember Hefner. Councilmember Fahey beat you to the punch. Any other discussion?
Only because of the internet delay. If I was there in person, I'm the fastest second in the West.
Yeah. Come back and join us, and we'll make that go away. Any other comments or questions? All right. So, all in favor?
Just an awkward question.
Oh.
Mr. Vogelsberg, are you of Centaurus Band? Thank you for all you do for our community as part of the Centaurus Band. Just a cool extra little piece.
Yeah.
He's the band director. At
We've got a lot of criteria.
Yeah, it's not part of the criteria.
No, it's great.
No, but it's
Great.
awesome.
Thank you. You're worthy in addition to meeting the criteria. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. City Attorney, have any report this evening?
None, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any upcoming agenda items or identification of future agenda items? Don't hear any. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much.
I would have preferred to see maybe more green space than parking, but I understand the balance. And the efforts to address the frontage issue on 42, I think are more than adequate. And I look forward to using the Paseo